I got confused there, Bjorn.
Money.
I got confused. Are you speaking about eradicating agricultural subsidies in the West, or are you speaking about subsidizing agricultural productivity in third world countries? Or I missed the mechanics there.
So sorry, I'm talking about subsidizing the people who would otherwise block more free trade. So this is basically subsidizing rich Western farmers to make sure that they're okay with more
right. So if their livelihood
trade
is endangered by the necessity of allowing for competition on the agricultural market, you just buy them out, like you might do with fishermen who are overfishing the ocean.
Yes, exactly. And this is not perfect by any means, but it's a way to actually solve the problem of getting more of the stuff that will help humanity.
Any idea what the benefit is of that compared to the cost? And is that calculable?
Yes. So we made the estimate that for every dollar you spend on these subsidies, you will help the world about $2,000. Basically because you can generate an enormous amount of internal growth. So we estimate that you could actually make every person in the developing world about $1,000 richer per person per year in 15 years. That's it.
Okay, so wait, we're going to slow down there because those are unbelievable those are unbelievably massive claims. Yeah. Okay, so you said to subsidize rich agricultural producers in the West to the tune of $1 a year buys you $1,000 in increased revenue globally. 2,000. Yes, 2,000. It's a 2,000 to 1 return.
Yes. And this is basically because this is the World Bank's dynamic trade models that show that once you get a society that's able to trade internationally and openly, you also get enhanced growth within those countries. So that means they by themselves get to be better so that, and these would mostly be poor countries. There would also be a lot of rich countries, but these would mostly actually help the world's poor because they have the most catching up to do. And they will then be much better off. Not only will that be better for them, because if you're poor, $1,000 is a lot better than if you're rich, getting another $1,000, but also because it will help them generate all the other things they would like to have: education, health, resilience to global warming. So the whole point here is to recognize that this is one of the things that are hard to have a discussion about. There are very few people are advocating global free trade. There are lots of people advocating against it. But we need to recognize that this is one of the things that have helped pull out most people of poverty, that we know could do even more in the future, and that we have a real opportunity to achieve. So that's,
well, you don't have ice floe abandoned cuddly polar bears as portraits of the farmers that you're going to help abstractly in third world countries. So you have a sales and marketing problem there, and that's a real problem, right? You know, it's interesting that the economic models don't take into account the difficulty of propagating the message. You know what I mean, is that because there is a sales and marketing problem there, and it's not trivial. And it might be that $1 spent in agricultural subsidies to rich farmers in the West would produce that $2,000 return. But the question might be, how much money would you have to spend advertising that before people would believe it? And it's a crucial question. You know, with a standard entrepreneurial product, I don't think it's unreasonable to estimate that 65 to 95% of the cost is in sales and marketing. 5% is production.
And that's a great argument. So in some sense, you could argue what we try to do with the Copenhagen Consensus, where we make these priority lists, is just simply give you the raw data for what would academically be the smartest things to invest in. But you're absolutely right. There's no cute and cuddly, selling points to free trade. And actually to most of our top outcomes. So let me just give you a few of the other ones. So the second best is family planning. And probably also basic emergency care to women. This will deliver about $100 back for every dollar spent.
You think that would also be extremely attractive to people on the left?
It should be attracted to everyone,
Yes.
Because look, remember, right now about 400,000 mothers die in childbirth, and about 2 million kids die in the first 28 days of their life here on Earth. And we know we could save many of these, not all of them, but many of these by simple measures. For instance, making sure that you don't get that the pregnant women don't get high blood pressure, preeclampsia and eclampsia, which kills more than 100,000 women every year. By simple emergency measures, when you come into a facility, give birth, and you have a problem, if you have simple procedures to make sure that that problem can be dealt with, often with fairly cheap. You don't need more doctors, you just need nurses or even assistant helpers. You can do a lot of these things. We know that you can do this for very low cost. And then again, if you have, there's about 215 million people, women who don't have access to prevention. So family planning, if you could get them family planning, not all of them would use family planning all of the time, but it would mean that they would space their kids better. They would be able to give more investment into each one of their kids. That would get them better educated. There would be a lot of knock-on effects, but mostly this would mean that a lot of moms wouldn't die in childbirth, and their children that they do give birth to would have better lives. And again, we estimate this would cost about $3 billion a year, but it would pay dividends both in terms of saving moms, saving kids, but also growing the economy because of what's known as the demographic dividend. If you have slightly fewer kids, you have more productivity because you have the same amount of capital, but for fewer kids, that means you get to be faster, richer. That's essentially what China has done in a sort of boosted way by their one child policy. I'm not advocating that at all, but it gives you a good sort of insight. Then there are lots of health things. We talked about tuberculosis. We could probably spend $1 on tuberculosis and help people not die, help people being better off, help families not dealing with tragedies of losing their mom and dad. It's typically, people in their middle ages that die from tuberculosis. Every dollar spent would avoid about $43 of social benefits. Would generate $43 of social benefits. Mm-hmm. If you look at childhood immunization, we've stopped a lot of the really damaging childhood diseases. So we've gone from a world where about 12 million children died just in 1980 to now only about 5 million children die every year below the age of 5. But clearly that's still way too many. We could probably save 1 million children for $1 billion a year. Just think about that. We estimate that for every dollar spent there, you do about $60 worth of good.